Siblings usually have the longest relationship of any with a person living with a disability. Now, most share a loving relationship. There are also challenges to be faced. There is going to be an adult sibling forum coming up here in Adelaide, and Kate Strohm is the director of Siblings Australia, and she's with me now. Hi, Kate. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to be here.
So why is a forum like this for adult siblings of those with a disability, why is it important?
Well, for two reasons. Often siblings can feel quite isolated themselves. They feel like other people don't understand the challenges that they face. So it's a way to have siblings come together and connect with each other, share their stories and get information and support from each other. But the other reason that we're running the forum is to allow service providers in both disability and mental health to come to hear a little bit more about the sibling experience, how to engage with siblings, because they're pretty overlooked in the service system. And so it's a starting point, I guess, to have some discussion in that area.
I guess I should declare for those that don't know, I am a sibling. My only brother has an intellectual disability, and I can agree with all of that. I don't think anyone asked me about how I was going all the way through. And that's not a slight on parents or anything like that. It's just they're so busy looking after that person with a disability that often you do just skate through life.
Well, exactly. And there's lots of support for parents of children and adults with disability. Probably not as much as there should be, but, millions of dollars are spent on parent support, and yet children are growing up in that same stressful situation often without the maturity to cope with what's happening around them. And so really the support should start at a much younger age than when they get to being adults. But the issues and challenges change over a lifetime. So an adult sibling might, as you say, have a very loving relationship with the person with disability, but parents start to become less able to provide the support for that person with disability. Some siblings move right away because the stresses are too great, and that's a huge tragedy for them and the person with disability. And then others take over that full-time care sometimes, often give up their own life to do that. And so there's a myriad of different experiences for adult siblings, and so it is important to understand what their needs are. How can we help them stay in touch with their brother or sister with disability? Because we know that many people with disability become isolated as well. And so, it seems to me that if anyone is interested in people with disability, they have to be interested in the people who will have the longest relationship with them.
Why do you think then there is no funding in this and there is no external interest in this issue?
Mainly because people don't understand the issues for siblings, and one of the fundamental reasons is that they're not in policy anywhere. And that's something I've been fighting for now for many years, that until we get them in policy, there's no real imperative for anybody to do anything about it. And it's very easy to overlook the needs of siblings when the needs of the child and then the adult with disability is so much the priority. And that's easy in some ways to understand. And parents are often very stretched. And so really as a community, we should be doing more to support these children and to understand what their experiences are and how we can support them.
If you're listening to any of this and you have lived this experience, I'd love to hear from you. You can call at any time on 1300 222 891, or you can text as well on 0467 922 891. So what are some of the issues that you will touch on during this forum? What are some of the areas that you want to break down?
Well, mainly that isolation of siblings doing this on their own, but coming together with others, having peer support. I mean, nobody understands the SIB experience like another sibling. And so we need to develop more peer support. We need to provide information for siblings who might be trying to navigate the system. Some of them this responsibility might come to them quite suddenly. Others might gradually start to understand what's out there in terms of services, but especially in the new NDIS environment, sometimes siblings can really struggle to understand the system, and especially if the transfer of that responsibility might happen quite suddenly. And so we'll also be looking at some of the legal issues when is guardianship important, when is it not necessary, all of those sorts of things that relate to whether a sibling can play a role. And I think it's important for siblings to think about what roles they're willing to play, what they're able to play. And so we'll be looking at all of those issues, thinking about what the challenges are, but also then thinking about how we can support siblings to, I guess for me, it's very much about how do we develop a good life for our brother or sister with disability alongside developing a good life for ourselves. And sometimes that balance gets out of whack. And so it's very much around thinking about those issues. And that's why it's really important, I think, for providers to come as well, to try and understand and engage with siblings more.
And certainly I think once the sibling has a family, like I have, I've got 3 young children now, I understand that I need and I have a responsibility to them. So how that marries up with looking after my brother, which is happening and will increasingly happen as mum and dad get older, that's quite a hard it's a hard question to ask yourself.
Exactly. And again, it comes back to the balance of how we balance the different parts of our lives. It's interesting, adult siblings have often been referred to as the club sandwich generation because we're, considering the fact that our parents are ageing, we may have our own children, and then, of course, brother or sister with disability that, most of us look out for and want to support. But like I said, some are really forced into a situation where they have to take that on and then give up some of their own goals and dreams for their own life.
Jane has given us a ring on 1300 222 891. How are you, Jane?
Very good, thank you. I just wanted to make a comment but also ask a question. And the impact on siblings, I'm a mum of a daughter with an intellectual disability and unstable epilepsy and a whole lot of other things from her genetic condition. And I have 2 other daughters, one's older and one's younger. And even though we provided lots of debriefing and assistance to the other kids, it wasn't really until they started talking to other siblings that Kate was able to put them in contact with through a camp, and then some other services we've used as well, that they actually felt like what they had experienced was the same as other people. If you don't get to validate it somewhere, you just think everyone kind of has these experiences, or you very quickly, once you start school, learn that they don't. And so a lot depends on that first interaction around how other kids talk about disability. And we certainly had one experience where we had both of our older daughters going to a school holiday program, and the first day, one of the other children there said to our eldest daughter, who isn't disabled, oh, are you weird like your sister? Are you going to be like that as well? And so that makes people start to need to talk to other people who just get being to ask that kind of thing, and having to do things that, Becky at 4 was managing seizures like a professional because she was playing with her sister and she would have a seizure, and we'd had to teach her that. So it's a very unusual childhood that many kids have with disability.
It certainly is. Now, Jane, you also wanted to ask a question?
Yeah, well, with the National Disability Insurance Scheme now being, in full rollout mode, there's a few things I've started to realise, and I'm not sure if this applies for sibling support, but